Welcome back to the 0 to 6 figure series. Without further ado, I think we should just jump straight into it. We are currently at 43,592. Now, for those of you who are new to the channel, this is my series where you see my portfolio. I show you which altcoins I'm buying, what the narratives are, things that are just going on in the crypto market. I try and get one or two of these episodes out every single week. If you guys like them, I will get them out more often, but ultimately I think one or two at the moment seems to be okay. And ultimately we're going to try and grow this portfolio to a six-figure portfolio. So you can go all the way back to episode 1. We're 32 episodes in, and you can see exactly how the portfolio's changed, my thesis, how narratives have kind of come and gone, some of the things we've bought, some of the things that we've sold, and here we are today. Now, one thing that's super cool is finally I've been able to add this average buy-in price, and that's pretty awesome because you can see like my average buys for pretty much every asset that I own now. So you can see like my average buy for ETH, my average buy for Say, Shadow, everything in my portfolio. You can see the average buy, and that is really, really nice. Anyway, I hope that it kind of helps to show you a little bit about the gains and how dollar cost averaging and things like that work as well. So what we were going to talk about today was, first of all, the portfolio, the new addition. We're also going to talk about a little bit about the portfolio in terms of balancing, and also in terms of what I'm going to be adding in future. And then lastly, we're going to talk about some new narratives and some new things that are popping up that are definitely on my radar. And I think possibly in the next few weeks, or I will possibly be accumulating or allocating towards in some way, shape or form. And so I guess we're kind of front running those potential narratives. So here we are today, $43,500. I mean, what's really been going on in the market? I think it's probably a lot of real world asset stuff. So you can see like Ondo, and you can see pretty much anything that's tied to real world assets has gone crazy, performed really, really well. I think in the last week, nothing really has stood out in terms of performance. We have like some stuff down 10%, some stuff up 5%. It's pretty stable. However, the one thing that has gone up a lot for us is Shadow. Shadow is the decentralized physical infrastructure storage protocol on Solana. I haven't done a deep dive on it, but potentially I will in due time. It got listed, or it had some sort of Coinbase listing announcement, and that caused it to pump quite nicely. Now it is down 10% on the day, so clearly there is some retracement there, but I still think, I think this is like a 320 million market cap coin. It's still fairly low in the grand scheme of things, really. So yeah, got good sizing here now. It's actually rank number 3. It wasn't anywhere near this when we first started allocating, but a nice pump can change your portfolio quite a lot, actually, especially when it's still a fairly small portfolio like mine is in the grand scheme of things. So I guess overall, like, things otherwise look fairly stable. Now, you may notice right at the bottom, we've got a new asset, and this is ATA. Now, Automata, or Automata, I don't know how you want to say it. It's essentially this modular attestation network that uses this concept called proof of machinehood to basically help with attestations. Now, it's got this really interesting it uses this really interesting piece of technology called TEEs, which stands for Trustless Execution Environments, and it's actually been integrated. This piece of middleware, I should say, has been integrated in quite a few places. It's actually going to be used with Flashbots, or Swave is what they're called now, and also Scroll are actually using this piece of middleware for their attestations as well. So yeah, I think this is a piece of middleware that fits the modular narrative that I really liked. I did make some notes on kind of the thesis around it a little bit, and kind of what this project actually is. I won't go into it too much today because we're not doing a deep dive on ATA today, perhaps in future, but I was pretty impressed with kind of what's going on here. The tokenomics seemed pretty okay to me, so that's why I decided to start a small position. It is, like I said, a very small position. It's like 2% of the portfolio. And so we'll see. I think generally what I like to do is I always like to dollar cost average into positions. I don't like to just go all in on one day and just size up, unless it's like something where I have to be really, really quick, or like something is coming up, or do you know what I mean? Like, this isn't that case. This is the case where I had a bit of time to just research, figure out what I wanted to do. I mentioned in the previous video that I wanted to start getting some modular exposure, and at least I do have some now, albeit a little small amount. So otherwise, I think generally things are okay. We've got our layer 1 exposure with ETH and SEI. We've got our deepen exposure with Shadow, AI exposure with SNS, OLAS, and BitTensor. We have our DeFi exposure with Gear and Butterfly and FXS. We have NFT exposure with Blur. We have infrastructure with Simio. I guess you could kind of count that as infrastructure. And of course, we have modular with ATA as well. So fairly well balanced portfolio. I mean, I'm pretty happy with it. I mean, you could argue that I still don't really have good modular exposure. I don't have gaming exposure, but I'm okay with that because I think I've built this portfolio to my strengths, things that I'm particularly interested in and things that I know well. And that's kind of why I've decided to create a portfolio like this. I think in terms of like deep dives for you guys, you tell me what you want to see, but I think out of everything in the portfolio, I think the one thing that I would like to cover next is probably BitTensor. I mean, we've done deep dives on ETH, of course, SEI. We've done deep dives on Gearbox, Redacted, FXS, Polygon. We've done deep dives on many of these, but I think BitTensor might be the one that is next, because I think I actually did get a few comments from some of you guys asking for that. So yeah, I've got BitTensor on my list. So that's pretty much the portfolio today. Yeah, nice to see that we've got a little bit of a bounce. I think we were around $40,000 at the end of last episode, and now we're at 43.5. Hopefully we can kind of push on, and we're only 10-15% away from being halfway done with the series. And once you kind of get to that stage, it gets significantly easier to kind of get closer to that 100,000 mark. So I'm pretty confident we will get there. We've still got a long way to go though. So I did actually write a long form tweet just not too long ago, just talking about the general trends in the market and kind of what I see going on. Bitcoin is still performing well. It's still above $70,000. So, I think as long as it's kind of above this 69K mark or even above the 70K mark, things look okay. There has been lots of volatility. Like, these candles have some pretty big wicks associated with them. 5-10% candles. Like, we haven't seen anything like that for a long time. I remember back here, you'd be lucky to get even more than 2-3% in a day. So that's been exciting, you could say. But I am wondering whether or not a deeper pullback will come, because yes, we did get this pullback, which was over 10%, maybe even 15%. But what I found is that the strong alts have really just bounced back straight away, and there really wasn't much of a correction for many of them. I mean, if there was, it pretty much got eaten very, very quickly. So yeah, I do wonder, if we will get another sell-off, perhaps sell in May, go away, or sell at the end of April, something like that. Who knows? I will be keeping a very, very, very close eye on kind of the Bitcoin chart, Bitcoin dominance, just how the funding rates are going, the ETF inflows. All of this data, I will be looking at it together and kind of making a decision. But ultimately, it's not going to change the portfolio. This is a long-term DCA portfolio where I'm not really going to be changing too much there. So real-world assets have been really hot. I mentioned this at the start of this video. Aptos, Ondo, even Landex has been performing really, really well. And then I also mentioned, modularity looks really interesting. I actually showed you this round from Espresso in the last episode where we talked about their funding. And I basically showed you a list of all kinds of modular projects. Now, at the moment, there isn't really too much. Like, if you look at the modular ecosystem, yeah, you've got Polygon, you've got Near, you've got Celestia with Tia, you've got Altlayer, which recently came out, Dimension, which recently came out. You've got a few of the lower caps with CTSI and Gelato, and you've got NIM, which recently has come out as well. So not too many, but I think there will be lots of new tokens coming out. And I think these are the 5 sectors that I think within the modularity space are the most interesting to me. So those are roll-ups as a service, so things like Altlayer. You've got the modular L1s and L2s. There's going to be many of them. You've got shared sequencer layers like Espresso. You've got data availability layers like Celestia. And then you've got interoperability. And we've got the wormhole airdrop actually coming next week. That could be a nice boost to the portfolio as well, because I do have some tokens coming there. And so, yeah, I think most of these are tokenless at the moment. But I think you will find that some of them will have tokens in the near future. And you can see ATA is actually on this list as well. I didn't even realize that. And then I think the last thing that we'll touch upon in this video is one of the upcoming narratives, and I think it will come back to Bitcoin. And we saw the massive hype with ordinals and BRC20s. Now, there is a new token standard coming to Bitcoin, and it's called runes. And runes are a significant improvement upon BRC20s. They require fewer transactions to deploy and to claim. They have larger namespace. They can have more characters. They actually have more. They're better in terms of security. They also use a different model. They use a UTXO model, and I think ultimately they create a better, more fungible token when it comes to using a Bitcoin standard. I will leave this article from Xverse, who basically explain like what runes are, which are basically these fungible tokens on the Bitcoin network created by Casey Rodamore. Yeah, it's meant to just be a better and more simple alternative to the BRC20s. Now, there will be, this will probably launch around the Bitcoin halving, and we're not too far away from the Bitcoin halving. So yeah, I think this will be pretty interesting. I will be speculating wherever I can here. So probably I'd need to get myself some Bitcoin over the next couple of weeks before we get to the Bitcoin halving. And then I think like, okay, if we get a dip, fine, great. But I think there will be definitely some potential opportunities here. Look, if you look at the BRC20s, some of them went to 9-digit plus, even close to 10-digit plus fully diluted market caps. 100 million plus for some of these rune tokens isn't out of the question for me. And so I think I will be paying close attention to them. I will try and figure out kind of where I should allocate, because it might be that rune infrastructure might be better than buying the rune tokens themselves. But there's going to be so many different kinds, including, I think most of them will be like meme coins. But we'll have to wait and see. So that's pretty much all I wanted to cover. We covered the portfolio today. We covered the latest edition. We covered modularity. We covered the Bitcoin ecosystem and my thoughts as well on the market. So yeah, that's pretty much all we're going to cover today. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll be back with another episode in probably just a couple of days.